Capital Record, where we defend free enterprise and capital markets because we believe in the dignity of the human person. Hello and welcome to David Bahnsen's Capital Record, brought to you by National Review, where today our subject is YIMBYism. Yes, in my backyard, applied to the subject of housing, which I think you will be hard-pressed to find a more practical issue in terms of current economic policy that affects a greater number of people than the approach we have in American life to housing. This is a subject near and dear to my heart. My very first book, Crisis of Responsibility, was basically an outflow of my attempt to address the financial crisis, the housing crisis of 2008, the global credit crisis that came out of the housing issue, and to do so from not only an economic but a moral and cultural standpoint. And I became obsessed with the subject of our national obsession with permanently escalating housing prices, and was utterly appalled at what I found out in terms of the bipartisan nature of the problem. And over the years, this birthright to housing prices that grow substantially more than real incomes grow, or that GDP grows, or that any rational economic barometer could justify, has made no sense to me and has never been limited into the realm of a certain partisan politics. Well, it is an issue near and dear to Capital Record because we're here to talk about a free and virtuous society and what it means in a given economic worldview to advocate for various policies that promote human flourishing. And I would tell you that I think a significant amount of unspoken angst that is felt in terms of various segments of the population has to do with unaffordability of housing. And it is not a byproduct of class warfare, although some will make it so. I've done a podcast before about the utter foolishness of blaming this on private equity. This is a byproduct of policy failure that unfortunately is interconnected with a cultural failure. The cultural failure being NIMBYism, not in my backyard. And YIMBYism, to me, represents an antidote to that mentality that is entirely bipartisan. It can be a very conservative issue. It is totally consistent with the economic framework we advocate for here on Capital Record, in so much as NIMBYism is essentially not only the sort of self-centeredness that says, I don't want other things around me because I don't need it anymore, and the traffic and parking and noise and various disturbances impact my quality of life, and therefore I'm willing to let my community suffer from inadequate supply of housing, and there's other rationales as well. Now, I do not refer to NIMBYism as someone who has a significant outdoor-oriented landscape that then somebody wants to go build a tower right behind them, or some type of an incredibly irrational use that dramatically impedes somebody's quality of life. There is not extreme cases that represent the norm for NIMBYism. The norm for NIMBYism is a mentality that simply is opposed to high density or opposed to various forms of new construction because of any inconvenience it may represent to someone. And YIMBYism is nothing more than the antidote to that. But really, in practical terms, YIMBYism is advocacy of deregulation. YIMBYism, saying yes in my backyard, meaning yes, we want to favor policies that will promote more home construction, more housing supply, that will properly calibrate the juxtaposition between supply and demand. Right now, the imbalance of supply and demand has put upward pressure on prices that, even apart from rising mortgage rates over the last couple of years, before mortgage rates were at 6 and 7%, we had an unaffordability crisis in housing. My view is that YIMBYism helps reset the plane to market level conditions. I am not asking government to subsidize developers. I'm not asking for government to force irrational construction of homes that is uneconomic. I am talking about simply market forces being allowed to work free of the impediment of deregulation, which is the tool of choice for NIMBYists. What do I mean here in the framework of deregulation? First and foremost, and it is an atrocity, are minimum lot size requirements that force a lower amount of homes that can be built at a higher either size of home or same size of home on a larger lot when a lot could be subdivided into more units. Essentially, you're limiting the amount of available, buyable, rentable space for no reason whatsoever. The regulatory apparatus. Now you say, well, people want the larger home. Then I guess they won't buy the smaller one. And the idea that consumer preference, that what builders want to build and what buyers want to buy need to be set by their state in a regulatory apparatus, particularly the state doing so literally out of their own desire for social engineering, is appalling. That conservatives would back this is appalling. Minimum lot size is low-hanging fruit for a changed deregulatory apparatus around housing. Secondly is permitting and zoning requirements. The difficulties in getting permits, particularly in the areas that are most housing constrained, there is a direct cause and effect there, and even some greater latitude of zoning. Now, this is a trickier one because I am not asking for conditional use permits and zoning to go away. I'm not asking them to be continued tools of the state to engineer. I am referring to sensible plans that make sense in given communities and allowing that to be locally administered. Some cities might want to have tighter zoning and others want to have less so. I am fine with that as an advocate of subsidiarity. However, this is not saying let's allow a strip club to get built next to a school. What I'm referring to are the zoning requirements that make it impossible to build mixed use or make it impossible to build more residential, and have created a sort of suburbanist, a very conscious suburban divide out of a suburbanism approach that is consciously limiting new housing stock, that is separating where people live and work and play. And this vision has been catastrophic in allowing for new housing stock to get built, and I happen to believe in enhancing quality of life as well. The notion that urbanist vision is big city, elite, cosmopolitan, fantasy is ridiculous. Look, I freely admit, because it's on the tape, I've said it a million times in other podcasts, I enjoy the pedestrian lifestyle of New York City. And I do like, we put at my company offices in downtown areas quite a bit. I'm sorry, but you find me a small town in America that wasn't built with a pedestrian-focused downtown. These are not anybody trying to impose their vision of quality of life on other communities. It's allowing market forces to work and to not do the opposite, to not constrain a quality of life with a one-size-fits-all blueprint that is completely enforced via regulation. YIMBYists are primarily advocates of property rights. There are different things that animate, because there are left-wing YIMBYists, no question. And I am well aware of the fact that there may be coalitional benefits, but we're not coming from the same ideology all the time. But the notion that YIMBYism is a left-wing school of thought is ridiculous. It's rooted in deregulation. It's rooted in property rights. It's rooted in market forces and it's rooted in not letting the needs of the few, who happen to be older and richer, dominate the needs of the many. There is an entirely democratic and conservative vision for housing and for middle-class living out of the YIMBYist lifestyle. I'm going to quote to close up an article that we'll put in the show notes in National Review over a year ago now about this very subject. And I just think this is a wonderful summary. The YIMBY movement is an attempt to rebuild the American dream of a comfortable middle-class existence with a stable family life and good friends. I could call that aspiration many things, yet the first term that comes to my mind is conservative. Thank you for listening to David Bahnsen's Capital Record. I always love you sharing this with others, giving us likes and subscribing. It helps grow our traffic. And I look forward to coming to you with another episode soon here in the Capital Record.